So I represent Mount Hood Gorge region, which is one of Travel Oregon's 7 regions. And we are, we normally do a 2-year plan. And so you may have taken our stakeholder survey. That was a little over a year ago. We usually do with Travel Oregon a stakeholder survey just to see what priorities are for folks in, throughout the state, and then it breaks it out into specific regions to help us with our planning process. And we usually do 2-year plans. So we did our 2-year plan. We were, just over half a year into it of the first year, and COVID hit. And so leading up to the end of this fiscal year, Travel Oregon gave us the opportunity to kind of reopen up what we originally planned, because a lot of it didn't make sense anymore, to the present times, to replan this next fiscal year, which for us starts July 1st, to really respond to the needs of our region in the kind of world of post-COVID, or during and through COVID times. So our region was really interested in going back to the stakeholders to see what their priorities were, to make sure we hit the right message and tone with where we wanted to put our investments for the region. And so just for context, our region has just over $300,000, so $309,000 is our budget for the region. So we did a survey, which I think a bunch of you filled out, so thank you for that. It was open for about a week, just a couple questions, or 9 questions total. And we had 93 responses, which was great, and good representation across the whole region, including some Washington responses. I cleaned out duplications and ended up with 87 responses in the end. And this graph just kind of gives you an idea of the good spread that we had in terms of different categories of where everybody was from, which I was really stoked about, because I think it means we had a good makeup of covering everybody. So if you can go to the next slide, the kind of 2 main things that we asked about in the survey were what, in terms of kind of bucket chunks, what would folks want us to prioritize for our investments in this coming fiscal year, given the circumstances? So kind of like how should we be investing that $309,000 to respond and support our tourism businesses, our tourism economy, and communities. And in particular, I think we can all agree, well, I think, everybody has been hit by this, but our small businesses, or just businesses in general, have been hit most drastically. So what I did is I actually pulled out, and I'll show you both all responses, but I just wanted to pull out what the priority areas were for specifically businesses that responded, which ended up being just over 2/3 of the responses. So you'll see kind of a hierarchy. At the top was the highest priority ranked, which was funding and grants, and at the lowest was international sales. So it was a 1 to 5 priority listing. I kind of made a nebulous mark of like 3 different levels of what that looks like. I think you could argue destination stewardship and tourism research, marketing insights kind of fit in that middle zone. But what's clear is funding and marketing and promotion, and even business recovery and resiliency were definitely like the top 3 for businesses. So if then you want to go to the next slide, you can see how it compares to all of the responses. So I just kept the same coloring from business responses to all responses, just so you could see where the switch happened. So you can see that tourism research and market insights was more important to businesses than it was to everybody. And I think that's probably because agencies are really kind of the other group who responded. Government agencies, transportation, land managers, etc. I think we're getting a lot of that information, or have, more readily accessible to us, and we know it exists, versus the businesses are just kind of in a different mind space right now and might not have access to it. Another difference was, let's see. Oh, marketing and promotion ranked much higher for businesses than it did, again, when looking at everybody's responses. I am not a research professional, so I didn't also pull out just the like non-businesses responses, which would be interesting. But as you can see, in general, the kind of top priority areas were about the same. And just looking at the bottom of the chart, which I think is also interesting, international sales ranked pretty low across the board. And I think, I think that's just going to exist until we come out of the pandemic and there's a vaccine, because international travel is going to be wonky, which is hard for our region because we definitely, in terms of the economy, tourism economy in our region, we are very, we have a really strong international presence through the work of Travel Oregon and some of what the region has done, but we get a lot of international visitors, mainly because of that waterfall corridor and the and Mount Hood. And then product development was also low, and that's something I'll talk about again later, but I think historically product development is seen as like developing new product someplace. So, saying, oh, in the Dalles, we really want to focus on mountain biking and let's really develop this new area for them. That is not a priority for people to develop something that doesn't already exist. Another one to point out, infrastructure and transportation, which is historically for our region ranked really amongst the top, if not the top priority area for our region, is much lower. And I think, again, that has to do with, physical distancing and how that impacts with transportation, and knowing that people are going to want to be in their own vehicles more for a while longer. I think this idea of car-free transportation has less importance, but it's still important. And I think we've heard from other partners, that transportation is going to still be critical to think about and include, but kind of that car-free messaging is not a top priority. So then if you want to go to the next slide. So then the other question that we had was, because so one thing that the regions have in terms of our planning process as an asset is Travel Oregon provides us with a menu of investment opportunities, or as they like to refer to as MOYO. But the menu of investment opportunities is essentially, programs that Travel Oregon is helping to lead, or sometimes they are helping to fund, and so we can, as a region, buy into those. And one of them was technical assistance virtual training thing that if you were on Travel Oregon's commission meeting, you would have heard Alexa and Lisa from that team give a really great presentation about, that I do not have the resources to do right now or the time, but we really, as a region, we really liked this idea of offering training, and in particular technical assistance for businesses in particular, to identify what needs they have to get them from where they are now to, being able to reopen and to be comfortable and confident in that, how to be more resilient, etc. So we took the categories, like kind of training topic categories that Travel Oregon had given us suggestions, just to see what people thought about them and where they prioritize them. So I kind of used a similar color pattern here of, highest priority is these lighter ones, and then medium colors, medium ones, and customer service training, or you can see is the lowest with a darker color. And this was just, I had people indicate if they were not interested, and or they could also select if they were interested in technical assistance. So you'll see business recovery is at the top. Collaboration to develop new packaged experiences. So I thought this was interesting that it was higher here, but product development was lower in the other question. And I think that's because new packaged experiences and collaboration, that's like finding, how a restaurant might be able to collaborate with a farm and work on some kind of packaged experience, because I think these kind of packaged personalized experiences are going to be a really important part of bringing the tourism economy back everywhere, and then also in our region, because people are worried about crowds and other groups of people, so they're going to want to do things that are more just with their small group, and the more that we can have people come together to build an exciting trip out of that for you, so that going into it, all of the rules and regulations and guidances have been thought through, and you're feeling a little bit more protected. So I think that's going to be a really cool one for us to dig deeper in. And just to note this technical assistance interest, you'll see the two top ones there was business recovery and resiliency and business adaptation. And I think it's because both of those are kind of very personalized things, like a business, like one-on-one interactions that somebody's going to want to have to get information about how their specific business can adapt, or be resilient or get through this recovery, versus being on a webinar. They're going to find that one-on-one expertise more useful. So this was very valuable. We're taking this back to our group. We do plan to invest in this. We've already started working with our regional rep for Business Oregon and the SBDC. So that's the Small Business Development Center. I don't know what the D stands for, at the Columbia Gorge Community College, but we'll be reaching out to Mount Hood Community College and Clackamas County Community College centers as well, to start working on, and then also in part with Travel Oregon, to just start working on how to start delivering some tools and resources to folks in our region as soon as possible. So that's all I've got. Happy to take questions.